Welcome in. This is your odds checker betting preview for this week's Genesis Scottish Open. I'm Rick Gehman. That right there, Geoff Fienberg. And Geoff, little appetizer before the Open Championship, but it's not so little. 14 of the top 15 players in the world showing up.
Yeah, quite an event. A really fun time of the golf season, Rick. The Scottish, we're into the Open next week, 150th at St. Andrews, a major. Just how great the majors have been this year already. And then, that's going to be like a peak. And, it's, very polarizing. There's probably going to be a bit of a lull after that we're all sort of preparing for that Florida drop beneath us. But until then, I don't know why I'm talking about that. Some really exciting golf over the next couple weeks. And it certainly starts out in Scotland this week, which historically has brought a great field. And this year they found a way to ratchet up ×5.
Yeah, incredible field and no shortage of star power on the odds checker grid. The favorite at 12-1, Jon Rahm. 14-1 is where you can find Justin Thomas and Scotty Scheffler. Then a little bit of a gap to the guys in the 20s. Sitting at 20 on the nose, Matt Fitzpatrick, Xander Schauffele. Let's start with those guys. It's basically the big five, Geoff. What do you see? Anything of interest?
So I've yet to make a single move on this entire event, a holiday weekend for pretty much everybody out here in North America. So a little sluggish on that front. If I did make a move out here, Rick, I'd go straight to the top and it'd be Jon Rahm. Do I expect that to end up on my betting card? Certainly not, but that is where I would pivot to. All the way at the top, I'd eat the points. I'd go to the top shelf. You could make the case Scotty and Justin should both be ahead of him on the odds board. Maybe I'll wait for it to filter back a little, grease as many points as I can. Not too concerned about it dropping. But, yeah, we're on the other side of the pond, and I'd go right to Jon Rahm.
One guy in the 20s, Patrick Cantlay, 25-1, then straight to Cam Smith at 30. You can also get Colin Morikawa at 30. You can also get Will Zalatoris at 30. You can also get Sam Burns at 31. Jordan Spieth at 33. The star power and win equity in that next tier, Geoff, like I feel like I say this every single week. It's going to be really, really enticing.
Yeah, so that's sort of where my eyes leap to on first look, and it starts with Cantlay, who at 25-1 in anything that isn't a major seems to probably be the best value on the entire golf betting board, despite the ability to actually cash anything this season outside of the team event. Rick, he continuously shows up. He takes you to the end in well, at least to Sunday. 25-1 seems like a pretty reasonable number. And then Sam Burns and Hideki Matsuyama sitting both in the 30s. Matsuyama 35. Still feels like a forgotten elite, a disrespected elite. That number seems really strong to me, and we'll see if Sam Burns' game can travel from pond to pond. But no matter the setup, despite him not showing up on my betting card very often, I'm as big a believer in Sam as just about all these guys. So those, I guess, would be the three in that 25-40, which is packed with some real talent that has my attention.
Yeah, the Hideki one I'm staring at. That just, it feels...
Over at FanDuel, we shout them out. Biggest number on the grid, or, geez, Caesars, I guess. I'm looking at that wrong. Yeah, Caesars with that 35, as low as 30. But, yeah. Put Aaron Hideki's tires for me, Rick.
Yeah, and FanDuel has it at a 34, so they're not far behind. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that I think has been overlooked all year. I mean, he's won, if you go back to like his last start of 2021, a couple of wins in that time frame. The putter is like definitely improved. It's like not even close. Like he is a much better putter now, and it's just a matter of putting it all together. So 35-1, Hideki Matsuyama, a guy who travels well, can do it all over the world. Super enticing. Victor's at 35, and then we get straight into the 45s, and that's Joaquin Niemann, Ryan Fox, who's getting a ton of respect from odds makers, Sung Jae Im, and then we step into the 50s, Geoff, with Max Homa and Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah, so I certainly noticed that Ryan Fox respect. It kind of popped early to me. You look at his finishes, it makes a lot of sense. There's the case that this is a step up in class, Rick, but at the same time, it's a week before the major. We've continued to have very interesting results, although Rory sort of ended a streak of longer shot winners taking home the week before the major. I mean, before that, this year, we had KH Lee and JJ Spawn. Right. So Rory kind of evening that out. It's kind of really hard to gauge. Billy Horschel always seems to enjoy playing over here. If you watched some coverage out in Germany a couple weeks ago where he was already playing, said he was headed over early to Scotland to just play some golf with some friends. Tommy Fleetwood, anything that's not on the PGA Tour, well, I guess is a co-sanction. That'll be funny if Tommy actually wins. I'd be thrilled, Rick, but like we'd have to have that side debate for these real like golf insane people on that. Is that even like a PGA Tour win? Like you can call it a PGA Tour win if you want, but it didn't happen in America, so we're still going to hold him to that. I actually think Fleetwood does set up well, 50-1, and Max Homa, also at 50-1 in this range. Rick, but again, the week before the major, I see myself sort of starting 30 and above this week, so it can leave me with some opportunities in this range, certainly.
Homa has basically one of the best stat profiles you could ask for of a guy at 50-1. It's splendid right now. He's fixed the flaws, and the ball striking has always been there. A couple notes on Tommy. Has played great at the Renaissance Club the last 2 times he's played here, and those odds are kind of all over the place. 37-1 is the shortest. If you shop it, you use the grid, you can get yourself a 50. So probably worth shopping it for old Tommy lad. Outside of that, Geoff, when we start to get longer, we get some experience, we get some Europeans. That's Keegan Bradley, it's Terrell Hatton. Aaron Rai won this event 2 years ago. Lucas Herbert has back-to-back 4th place finishes at this event. Do we trust any of these guys here to actually win the golf tournament?
I guess you can make that decision. It does sort of feel like, for field strength, that it's going to be hard for all of you mentioned it, 14 of the top 15 in the world, and then even behind that, there's some real strong candidates. It seems like it's quite an ask for any of these guys. The books, 70 on Aaron Rai. They're asking me not to bet him, but his results have me real tempted, and his comfort zone over here would certainly be something that has a lot of people's attention. I'll probably look to make money on Rai in other markets because I probably don't trust the win, but I do believe he does set up beautifully for this week in Scotland, and his game continues to trend. And once you get over 100, there are some tempting options, Rick, but I haven't pulled the trigger on any of them just yet. Specifically, Hao Tong Lee has a bit of my attention. Alex Noren peaking at 100, as low as 65-1 on that odds checker grid I'm staring at right now.
Yeah, the Hao Tong Lee number as well, as long as 130, as short as 95. So this is the part of the grid or the part of the betting board that odds makers are not necessarily agreeing on. Sebastian Munoz is another, as long as 100, as short as 70. So do your shopping. Yeah, these are the guys that I think I'll gain access to in other markets. Even Maverick McNeely, who had a top 10 last week, and I cannot quit. There was somebody else in here that I liked. He was a little bit high. Oh, Mito Pereira. Like, I'm happy to go back to Mito, who's missed 2 cuts by a total of 2 strokes or whatever in the last 2 weeks. These are the guys that I want access to. I just have fairly little belief that they're actually going to win.
Yeah, listen, Ryan Fox is getting a ton of hype. If he contends again, it wouldn't shock me. I'm more intrigued to sort of wait for those other markets to show up to probably bet on like an Artie Arnis, who's at 200 in the outright market. Yeah. I'm really intrigued on what sort of other, what his numbers will be in a lot of the placing markets, certainly.
Will you do anything for the Open Championship this week? Because I always think like, okay, who's a good example here? Like, if Jordan Spieth at 33-1 was to win the Scottish Open, he might be the favorite by the time we get to the Open Championship.
Okay.
Right? So, like, are you going to take a half a unit, a quarter a unit, kind of, are you going to do anything for the Open Championship right now?
I'm always ready. And as we speak about it, Rick, like, the odds checker grid is a 12-month-a-year tool for me. Like, I'm always ready to make a move on a major. What I'm never doing is like, oh, that guy just won, now I'm gonna go bet him because he like clicks off like half trends boxes,
Right.
you know, as it'll pertain to that week. No, but like there was that major this year where Hideki played, he looked great early. There was the back injury before. Was it like right before the PGA Championship? So I went and hunted, like got 50 to 1 on Hideki,
Right,
was thinking about him already. There's that. This major, like historically betting the week before the major is bad, in my opinion. It's almost like the books haven't reset their markets and they're like a drug dealer. Like if you need it now, you can have it. You're like,
it's going to
probably paying for the worst number, but this is such a different entity. It feels like because these guys are playing. Like rarely does this amount of guys, these great players play. So I do feel like, normally it's hard for a lot of guys' numbers to get worse. But with 14 of the 15 best players in the world playing, there's an opportunity for a lot of guys' numbers to actually get worse, if that makes sense. Because when they're not playing, what do they have? What has to happen for their number to get worse before you actually get ready to bet outside of some really popular people that people trust, touting them hard on the weekend? I said a lot there, but this one feels different. And clearly you can tell my mind's already thinking about it a lot.
Yeah, and I think there's only, a handful of these guys, right? If Jon Rahm were to win the Scottish Open, it's not going to impact his Open Championship number all that much, But there are some of those guys that if you think you're getting a really good number on them now, and I think Spieth is a really good example because he could become such a public player. Like he could end up being the favorite if you were to win this week.
Yeah, so, or just as an example, Colin Morikawa, Rick. Let's say we are overseas and this guy is in it again. Like we'll go right back maybe to vintage Morikawa numbers because he played outstanding outside of a Saturday round at the US Open.
Yeah.
So he's the guy, like, because I'm seeing him even boosted to 30 in some places for next week. If he has a great Scottish Open, I think we can get like vintage by vintage. I mean, I want to say a year ago because there were some huge numbers on him, as the reports of all that from last year. But I think, Morikawa, Spieth, can make perfect sense. Even a guy like Victor Hovland, Rick, his number is probably peaking right now for the Open. If he looks dialed in and then on one of his like zones, I think people could be ready to make a move at an Open Championship at St. Andrews, where I don't know. I mean, it doesn't feels like anyone dialed in with the irons will be able to have an outstanding week if they're on the lucky weather draw.
Right. Yes. We're going to be meteorologists for the next 2 weeks because the weather is so much of a variable in these types of events. Okay, Geoff, get your coffee ready. It's going to be late nights. It's going to be early mornings, my friend. And if you see anything you like and you're going to bet it for the Open Championship this week, send me a message. I want to know. Geoff Fienberg is available on Twitter at GFienberg17. You can find me at Rick Good. This has been your odds checker betting preview for the Scottish Open. Good luck.